Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Sean Pearson, your host for Journey to Virtuous. And today I have been inspired to share um, a specific healing journey that I am on. And it relates to having right relationships, beginning with God, and then family, and then friends. This last year in business has been very eye opening for me. In ministry, it's been eye opening as well. And on my personal journey in healing some relationships with family members, it has been such a revelation for me to recognize how. Um, Having unhealed places have impacted every area of my life. And I didn't even realize that they were areas that were unhealed. But I recognize in my healing journey that it has impacted every area of my life. Some places that I tucked away, things that I thought I was healed from, things that I thought I had forgiven other individuals for, that were personal experiences, how they spilled over into my professional life, and how that caused me to create some unhealthy environments, unhealthy relationships. And so today I wanted to just share with you my journey on developing right relationships with God, family, and friends. And so I want to begin on my relationship with God because I have been not raised in the church. I gave my life to the Lord when I was 19 years old, and it was after the trauma of having lost my mother to cancer. And there were a series of events that followed that. It was getting married, it was having a second child. It was a roller coaster of emotional and physical and sexual abuse that took place in that first marriage. And I did not have an anchor in a true relationship with God. What I had was a relationship that I had mimicked because of what I had seen from other adults. And what I had experienced with other adults was one behavior in church on Sunday and then a different behavior through the week, Monday through Saturday. And so my belief unconsciously was that the relationship with God was really one of praying to him to ask him for something that I wanted and then him delivering on whatever that request was. So he almost became like the Pizza Hut man or the Uber driver or the Uber Eats driver. Just deliver to me what I'm asking you for. I had no commitment other than to go and to pray and to show up in service on Sunday or on Wednesday or whatever night it was that I was supposed to be in church. But the backstory of all of that was that I didn't realize that people didn't have a right relationship with God. They too were mimicking what they had seen from generations before them. And so it was my suicide attempt at 26 that began my real relationship with God, where I was actually asking questions through prayer and expecting an answer, not just looking to be like and look like and do like I had seen people do in services on Sunday. And so from 26 years old now to where I am more than 20, almost 30 years later, I'm still learning how to develop a closer relationship with God. And so, what I was recognizing in this year for me is that my relationship with God, although it is authentic, although I know He speaks to me, although I know I'm faithful in most of what I hear, what I had to adjust to is that when God changed his way of doing something in my life, I was resistant to even him. I was no longer being obedient. Now, what I mean by that is there's a way that God called me to do a certain work that I'm doing within Zion Institute, within ministry, and the way that I serve in worship on Sunday at a house of worship. This year, God switched that up on me. I won't even say it started this year because I think I've just been resistant to it as it was coming along. But the way that God desired to use the giftings and talents that He placed in me required that I not sit comfortably in the pews at one church, but rather I take my gift to multiple places where that gift needed to be used for the building of His kingdom. And I was resistant to that because I wanted to be comfortable in one place. I wanted to be like people that I was familiar with that could say they've been at a church 30 and 40 years. What God caused me to start looking at was what is the fruit I'm producing by sitting in that seat on any given day, in any given year, for however long He allowed me to be in that space. And when I had to look at the fruit of my relationship with God, I was saying to myself, Am I producing what he desires of me, or am I just producing a lifestyle that society will say, oh, she's a good church going woman, she's a God fearing woman, and so forth? And it really challenged me to stretch myself. And my right relationship with God looks like a reciprocal relationship, not only him comforting and providing and leading and guiding me, but also me doing the same, loving God in a way that shows him I wholeheartedly trust him as my heavenly father, that I wholeheartedly trust him as my provider, as my protector, as my peace giver, the one who has taught me everything I know about business. And that challenge was one that I had to face with courage. At first, I was very, very resistant to it. I'll tell you the truth. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to leave my comfort zone. I didn't want to have the battle with my spouse, who I was afraid wouldn't understand what God was calling me to do. I didn't want to be judged by people within the church community and seen as quote unquote the church hopper, that one that left whenever she was unhappy. I wasn't leaving because I was unhappy. I was leaving because God was sending me on assignment to different places to sow in with the gifts that he's placed in me. And I'm grateful that I have an anchor in a pastor who allows me to do that, who still covers me spiritually, but he expects me to do that apostolic call to walk in that in my life according to the way God intends for me to. So for me, that right relationship with God was making sure that I was being fully obedient to whatever shift he was causing to happen in my life. That was a right relationship for me. It was no longer just sitting in a pew. It was no longer just being comfortable because I could sing in the choir. It was no longer just giving my tithe and my offering, whether I showed up or not, but it was really about me walking in the obedience of using my gifts and talents wherever he sends me for the kingdom, whether that's in Arizona or another state. And in my husband's case, even another country, another continent. He was blessed to be able to go to Africa recently, and I see God using him to lead me. And so I'm grateful for that. The next place that I wanted to talk about is those right relationships with family members. I recognize in my life that I have been the peacemaker, the caregiver, the nurturer of everyone. Let's bring everyone together. Let's be happy. That matriarch that people wanted to put in the place of where my mother or my grandmother should have been, but the relationships weren't healthy. And this year, I was challenged around Mother's Day to go back and visit my father in California, not expecting to find an elderly man who was sick with dementia. And in that moment, I had to choose whether to leave my father in California and come back to Arizona and pretend that life was good and just continue to talk to him every morning or every other morning, the routine that I had. Or was I going to take it as an opportunity to heal my relationship with my father, bring him to Arizona and become his caregiver? Now, the life that I had set up for me in business and ministry and home with my husband and the routine with my grandchildren and my children was convenient for me. There was a structure to it, although it seemed like madness to others, there was a structure to it for me. But incorporating my father's care meant a lot of things. It meant that I was going to have to address my old wounds with my father. I was going to have to address those moments in my childhood where I felt he should have been there for me and he wasn't. Now it's an opportunity where I have to choose to be there for him. Like the word says, honoring my father and my mother, being available to him. It meant the challenge of forgiving even his companion, where I had some very old wounds from my childhood and the way that I was treated as they began their union when they were married and then divorced and then staying together. As a woman of faith, there were things that I had to be responsible for, and I had to make the choice to be loving and kind to my father and to his companion. And at the same time, the challenge of my brothers who are here in the state with me, desiring to have their support, but being able to recognize that their healing journey is different from mine. So the level of capacity that they would have to be part of the care plan for my father was going to look different. And so my expectation was I'd bring my father to California. The three of us would get together. We'd make a plan. We'd make sure that my father was taken care of. When it didn't turn out that way, the first moment was one of abandonment. And I felt like, why are they not showing up the way that I need them to show up for him? Not considering that they had their own wounds to deal with, not considering that they had their own journey of forgiveness and healing that they have to walk out with my father. And so it was a moment of reckoning again. But because I had already begun the journey of a right relationship with God, I was able to lean on him and say, show me how to have grace for my brothers. Show me how to have grace for the adults that I expected to be a part of this healing journey who aren't quite there, who don't have the capacity or even the desire to be part of the care team for my father and his companion. And then I also had to adjust my own boundaries with myself. I could no longer be that caregiver that took care of everyone else first. I had to really make sure self care was a priority for me. If I'm going to be a caregiver for someone that is vulnerable, I need to make sure that I'm good. And part of me being good meant being honest about what I liked, what I didn't like, what I was comfortable doing, what I was not comfortable doing, what was realistic for me to do in terms of the schedule that I had and all of the things that were on my plate. And so those right relationships with family meant I started to own some things, be responsible for myself, be responsible for my communication with my family members, to tell them when I needed help, to tell them when I needed support, to tell them when I needed to take a step back, to tell them when I'm angry about the fact that they're not at the table with me the way that I thought they would be. But being able to get through all of that allowed me to reset, to set some new boundaries in my relationships and how I communicated with everyone. Because before, I was the caregiver for everyone. I was Miss Fix It. I was lean on me, we'll figure it out. I was the intercessor for everybody. I was the go to for everyone, not taking care of myself. And because I didn't have a right relationship with God, I wasn't leaning on Him in those times of my weakness. I leaned in my own intellect, my own understanding, and I was wearing myself out. And the same with my family. When there were things that they were going through, if I felt like I had the ability to fix their issue, then I put myself in a position that I really should have allowed God to be in. I was wanting to fix some things that sometimes I needed to just be in prayer about so that they could learn to lean on God the way that I'm learning to lean on God. And so establishing those right relationships meant I have more time now to spend with my grandchildren, which I love. I don't think there's any greater title that I have in my world right now than being a Gigi to all of my grandchildren, being able to just love on them and not spoil them, but nurture them in a way that I was not nurtured by my mother or my grandmother. And just building these new relationships, these right relationships, I have an opportunity to model for them grace and patience and love and nurturing and still bring correction, but have them understand that that correction and that discipline is because I love them. And so that space of right relationships with family has been a phenomenal experience. I would encourage all of you to start examining your relationships with family. As we're approaching Christmas, the family tradition has always been that everyone stops what they do. They gather at one family member's house, usually the eldest family member in the family. Everyone schedules their time and their attention all to be in that space. I didn't do that this year. This year I'm deciding to actually host at my house and just relax, but I'm giving my adult children and all the adult family members, go be and do and love and enjoy and do what you want to in your space. Don't feel obligated to show up at my house and pretend to be happy about being there, but that's one of those things about right relationships. When it's healthy across the board, we don't have a need to perform for one another. We're going to accept each other unconditionally, and it begins with me accepting them unconditionally. If you're not showing up on Christmas, no problem. Your babies will have their gifts from me before Christmas, and you can do what you're going to do with them, and they can do what they want to do with their friends, family, whatever the plan is that they have for them. But I'm okay with it because I'm not trying to perform for them, and I don't want them to perform for me. And that last space for me, right relationships with friends, that has probably been the most difficult for me. Just because of my life's journey, I don't make friends quickly because of a fear of betrayal and abandonment. I don't make friends easily because I know that I love hard. And when I'm in a relationship, when the disappointment comes, I take it really, really hard. But I have to say, I'm excited about this year being the first year that I've opened up and actually allowed friends to love on me. female friends. Let me be very specific because I have a husband and I have values that don't necessarily align with society. I don't have a lot of male friends, but that's not because men aren't enjoyable as friends. It's to honor my marriage. But just for me, being able to develop friendships with women and allow women to love on me and for me to be completely vulnerable, let them see my bad hair days, my bad dress days, my days when I want to cry, my days when I need to drink a glass of wine with someone just to feel sorry for myself for those 30 minutes that I'll allow before I start working on trying to fix things. But really establishing relationships with women who have been loving and nurturing and caring for me has been just a remarkable experience for me to be able to express. And so I don't wear the mask of pretending to feel okay when I'm not okay. I don't wear the mask of pretending to be okay on those days that I'm not. I can pick up the phone and call some of these ladies and say, you know what? I need a pancake therapy day. I get that from one of my friends. I have another that will go eat wings with me and play bingo. I have another that'll drink a glass of wine with me. I have another that'll work out with me. I have another that will just let me fuss and cuss and get through it all. And I have another who will intercede in prayer with me and for me. So all things that I need are being found in these friendships. And so I've given my heart permission this year to heal, and I want to invite you all that are watching to give yourselves permission to heal in this season and develop some genuine right relationships. And what I mean by right is right for who you are naturally. Be who you are and not who you would tend to be when other people are watching you, but just naturally you. All your imperfections, all your fears, all your concerns, but all your gifts, talents, and abilities and what you have to offer to the world. I want to encourage you to establish that time where you are creating a right relationship with God, a right relationship with your family, and right relationships with all of your friends, and reassess who's in your world. It's okay to evolve beyond a relationship that you're in or that you've been in for all your life or that you've been in for some decades. We do mature. Sometimes we outgrow individuals. We outgrow the way we used to think, the way we used to live, the way we used to carry ourselves. And it's okay to walk in your greatness and rediscover new relationships, rediscover new boundaries for yourself, and the way that you allow other people to treat you and the way that you teach other people to treat you. Today, I want to encourage you to find those right relationships. Today, I want to encourage you to um, love yourself enough to choose you and to get healthy and to walk into this next year being the greatest version of yourself that you've ever seen so that you can be more fit to love on all the people around you. I'm Sean Pearson, and I'm encouraging you to stay on this journey to Virtuous with me, but I'm also encouraging you, more importantly, to find your own journey to Virtuous. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me on my podcast, The Journey to Virtuous. Please like and subscribe. If you'd like to know more about the work that I'm doing, please visit me on social media at thezioninstitute.org or Whisper Consulting, or also Sean Pearson Journey Coach. You can also find me on one of my websites, thezioninstitute.org, thezioninstitute.org, or whisperconsulting.com. That's WISPHER consulting.com. Thank you for your support.